Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking time to join MIM Learning Insights, our first series for the year. I am Stella Jacobs, the General Manager for Malaysian Institute of Management, and today MIM is proud to bring you yet another exciting webinar titled The BASEL Diploma and Certifications in Corporate Compliance, and Anti-Corruption Compliance. The Malaysian Institute of Management was established in 1966 as a non-profit and non-political organization, and it's widely recognized as the authoritative management voice in the country. Our core values of professionalism, excellence, generosity, and integrity have been unchanging since the first day of our founding and will continue to act as a northern star that guides us as we move forward in this increasingly complicated and continuously changing global business environment. Drawing the collective wisdom, insights, and ideas of the country's most decorated leaders, MIM is able to consistently produce the most competitive and relevant management training programs and content for our managers and aspiring executives and entrepreneurs for decades. With every opportunity comes its new set of challenges. Thank you to those of you who have been following us and for joining our crucial conversations, which was held last December 15, titled Building Towards a Corrupt-Free Nation, Fighting Corruption and Embracing a Culture of Compliance for Good Governance. We had several key speakers at the session, and to name a few, we had Yang Bahagia Datuk Dr. Anis, Principal Fellow for KITA UKM. We had Miss Cynthia Gabriel, the Director, the Center to Combat Corruption and Colonialism. We also had Yang Bahagia Datin Yasmin Marikan, the Governor for Malaysian Institute of Corporate Governance. And of course, today the facilitator and the main speaker is Dr. Mohan, who is the President, Transparency International Malaysia. As part of taking the lead from our government and our legacy in shaping a better Malaysia, MIM continues to play a pertinent role in upskilling professionals through our Center of Excellence for Corporate Governance and Compliance. MIM is focused to nurture key international partnerships to provide best-in-class upskilling programs in its effort to support the government in developing the nation's management and leadership pipeline with relevant and future-ready programs. Today, we are proud to bring you this program with our key partner, the BASEL Institute of Governance in Switzerland, based independent, not-for-profit competency center, working around the world with the public and private sectors to counter corruption and improve the quality of governance. I now would like to hand the session over to Dr. Mohan, and I take great pleasure in introducing Dr. Mohan, who is the President of Transparency International Malaysia. Over to you, Dr. Mohan. We can't hear you, Dr. Mohan.
Sorry.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Stella. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Very Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone. I will just touch on three courses that is being conducted under the BASEL certification. So the first one will be on BASEL certificate in anti-corruption compliance. Now, the objective of this program is basically to give participants an understanding about the anti-corruption instruments, the applicable laws, the jurisdictions, and so on. So when you attend this program, basically the idea here is to impart to you how could you implement some of the anti-corruption compliance and so on. So the next slide, please. So in terms of course content, so what we will do is you will be exposed to some of the international treaties and so on, international corruption laws. For example, UNCAC, United Nations Anti-Corruption compliance. This is Malaysia has actually signed for it, and we have rectified the UNCAC, and therefore we will expose to you what is UNCAC and so on. And the other thing, we will also be looking at the local regulations, local laws here. For example, the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act, and so on. We'll also cover other things like third-party due diligence. This is very important because many of the, especially in the private sector, you will be engaging with a lot of partners, suppliers, vendors, and it becomes very complicated when your company actually starts diversifying and trying to expand internationally. So we'll be covering all that in this course. So let me take you through a few slides to give you a snapshot of what we are actually going to cover. Next slide, please. Okay, so very often we get this question, what is corruption and what is bribery? And there's a lot of confusion about this. And so this will be addressed in the course. As you can see, by giving or taking or asking or offering or bonuses or event invitations or rewards or holiday packages. So all this can be deemed as corruption. And we will give you lots of examples in the class when you attend. Next slide, please. Next. Okay. The other area that we'll be covering is under the MACC Act, the 4 major offenses. Now, we find that in every program, many participants are not aware about some of these offenses. They know it is wrong to offer a bribe or receive a bribe. But what about other things about abuse of power and false claims? So like you see under item number 3, false claims, section 18, is a one that many companies have problems with this. Very often when companies detect there is false claims made or suppliers making a false claim, normally it stops there where the companies don't report to the MACC. But if the MACC were to report, then the individual concerned can be charged under section 18. So these are things that we will be covering during in the course of the anti-corruption compliance program. Okay, next slide, please. Then, of course, many of you will be familiar with this, the corporate liability. This corporate liability, it was the provision was passed under the MACC Act in 2018 and gazetted for enforcement 2 years later in 2020. So the law is already being enforced. And the idea here is to plug the loophole concerning gratification. So mainly this corporate liability is actually about offering. So in the past, remember just now I showed you under the MACC Act, section 16 and 17, that will cover about individuals offering bribes or receiving bribes. So even if you are sanctioned by the company, you get away with it. The company gets away with it. The directors get away with it. But with the corporate liability today, companies cannot get away, and the directors are also liable. So, so this is something that it's a must that if you are coming from the private sector, for you to know and to get this message across to your top management. Of course, there are some companies have already implemented the adequate procedures and so on. So we'll cover all that in this course. So that's, I think, for the first course on anti-corruption. The next one we will be doing is the BASEL certificate in governance. Now, you all have heard of corporate governance. Actually, the word of corporate governance very much came about in Malaysia. It was always there, but it came about became popular post the 1997 financial crisis. It was only then that it became a very important, especially for listed companies, that directors, particularly even in subsidiary companies, have to attend courses and so on. And that's how the Malaysian Institute of Corporate Governance was set up at that time. And then also at that same time, the Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance emerged, and that has gone through several upgrades or evolution, and they have amended the Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance. So it's good to take a look at this Code of Corporate Governance. This course is very, very useful, especially if you are in the senior management level, and also in the middle management, you potential for you to rise up in the organization. And you will start learning about the link between shareholders, the board, and the management. In the old days, we always thought that, you make money, your purpose of being in the organization is to make money for the shareholders. Hardly we hear about stakeholders, but today stakeholders play a very big part in running an organization. So we'll cover lots of this and so on. The next slide, please. So maybe a little bit about the course content. So basically, we'll introduce to you the concepts of governance. What are the consequences of weak governance? Risk in governance, governance culture in the organization. This is very important. It's no point saying that, oh, we have good governance, we have a governance, a division for compliance and so on, but actually you don't have a governance culture in the organization. We'll also touch on some of the landmark cases in the class, how big companies, listed companies, even they are listed in NASDAQ and so on, even those companies get into trouble simply because they think they know everything, and one day they get caught in this. All right. So some of the challenges and the role of the board, various committees, remuneration committee, nomination committee, risk management committee, all these, their functions, what they are supposed to do, and all that we will discuss in class. Next, please. Next. Okay. So this is typically a structure of an organization. You have shareholders, and those red dots there means that major shareholders, minor shareholders, and the other institutional investors and things like that. And then, of course, they are all the board is accountable to the shareholders, and the shareholders will decide how to vote in who to be in the board. So every year, during the AGM, this exercise will take place. Also, the shareholders may re-vote for all the same members of the board and continue. Then you have the management. So in this course, you will learn the link between the board and the management. What are their responsibilities? And down the line, the business lines, the business units, various business units and various functions, what are their roles and so on. And how the risk is managed right from the board to the bottom and so on. And then we'll also look at the performance of the management and how they should be reporting to the board periodically and so on. And of course, because this course is on governance, and earlier we talked about anti-corruption, the role of the board has become very important compared to 20, 30 years ago. Now with the corporate liability, as I mentioned earlier in the other course, the responsibility of the board and being a board member is no longer something, many who are in the board, just appointed, or it could be a political appointee or getting a board fees. That's not the responsibility for the board members. They have to be very careful, know what is going on the ground and so. And of course, it's not possible if you have 200 over companies under your headquarter. Can you imagine? And worse still, if they are highly fragmented all over the world, and different countries have different regulations and so on. So it's not easy, to be sitting in the board. So these are issues that we will be debating and discussing. And many of you who come with some background experience, you can also share in class as well. Next slide, please. And of course, we'll have a lot of cases to discuss why boards fail. Boards fail because maybe you have incompetent board members, especially when they are politically appointed. There's a reason why they are appointed without a proper qualification and experience. And this is what happens. Or boards fail because there's an abuse of power within the board itself, or there is a lack of trust between the board and the management, and things like that. So these are areas that we will be discussing. And also we'll touch on the question of separation of power between the board and the managing director or the CEO. Of course, in most American companies, you find that the chair and the CEO is the same person. But here, this part of the world, we don't see very much. In Malaysia. Actually, the role is being separated. So why we need to separate, and what are the consequences if they are the same person, and so on. So these are things that we will be covering in class. All right, next slide, please. Okay, the third course will be on compliance. Now, you will notice that in this course as well as the governance, as well as anti-corruption, somehow there will be a little bit of overlap between the three courses. Because when you talk about risk management, we will cover in anti-corruption compliance. Risk management is also covered in the governance side. Risk management will also be covered in the compliance side. Now, why do we have this overlap? Because it is very important, because somehow the three actually are towards a common goal. A common goal is to have a good governance. And so when we talk about good governance, as you hear daily under this new government, almost daily or every meeting that the Prime Minister talks about, he always talks about good governance. In Malay, he always says, tata kelola yang baik, ketulusan yang baik, integrity, and so on. So I would say this program is very timely, especially for all of you to attend this program. So under this compliance course, basically the role of the compliance division, or if you are functioning as under the compliance unit or department of compliance, then this will be very useful for you. So the idea here is actually, in terms of content, is to give you the basic concept about compliance management, the scope of the corporate functions, then compliance management system. There is something called CMS. And so how do you develop a compliance management system? So we'll cover that in the course. All right. And we'll have a lot of discussion, especially on the Malaysian context. Again, as you see, risk assessment is there. So even whether under compliance, governance, anti-corruption, risk assessment is always there. Only through this assessment, you can take systematic controls to put in place to make sure that your various departments actually function and comply to these things. And this could also mean compliance to external regulations. You could need to comply to the, for example, environmental regulations. If you are a manufacturing setup, you need to comply to the environmental legislations. Because if you violate any of these rules or regulations, you put your company at risk. The same thing goes back. Now you have the corporate liability. So again, that comes to compliance, making sure that all your agents, making sure your consultants, all these people are fully aware about your regulations and your code of conduct and so on. Next slide, please. So, of course, in this course, you will be introduced to what you call the definition of basic definition of compliance, and what is your duty at an individual level. Many get the impression that, oh, this is under the compliance department, they will take care of that. No, that's not true. At the end of the day, it is cascaded down to you, and you will be responsible to make sure you comply with the rules and guidelines provided to you. Next slide, please. Okay, so of course, we'll also touch on the issue of function of compliance. Now, very often, majority of companies, particularly the SMEs, I noticed that many of the compliance function that they create is an afterthought action. This means that when something bad happens in the organization, for example, you have illegal workers in your under your employment, and you get caught by the authorities, and then you start doing all those rectification, making sure they get their proper permits and so on. And normally this is a struggle. Yeah, it's a struggle. Good organization will constantly look at all the risks that is they have to face in the organization, and then they will put in controls before you are before you get caught. So this is something that we will discuss at length in class. Okay, next please. Okay. So this is just a quote I have taken from the US Deputy of Attorney General Paul McNulty. Now, if you think compliance is expensive, then try non-compliance. Basically, what it means is, because you see, it is not like building a new facility or building a port or building a additional manufacturing facilities where you have return on investment. So top management and the board always will get very excited to approve your project. But when you talk about compliance, it means you can't really see tangible returns. But it can be worked out. I mean, you looked at your risk assessment. What happens if this were to occur? What is the consequences to your business? So that is what you will realize when you complete this course. Then that's exactly what this gentleman is saying. If you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance and then see what happens to your organization. Next, please. So we'll also touch on cases. Now, the best way to study in this kind of courses is cases. So we will present to you a number of cases, and some of these names you all will be very familiar. I mean, imagine even a company like Shell, so established with strong governance, they have had difficulties, and of course, Enron, this company is no more, WorldCom, no more, Barings Banks, no more there, Arthur Andersen is gone. Mahindra Satyam bought over by another company. All these are related to non-compliances and failure in their governance structure. Even a company like Volkswagen, many of you know. In fact, we run a case on Volkswagen in the anti-corruption course, and you will be exposed to how these kind of scandals will happen. And that's why especially when your company gets very has grown up, the risks are even higher, and you have to mitigate those risks. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the other companies there. Okay, right, next. So our training approach will be very much using case studies, because case studies will give you a good learning and understanding. So cases will be presented to you maybe a day before the class. And also we'll be sharing with you a lot of latest articles from reliable sources. And then some videos will be run as well. But I think the best way for you to learn in these three courses will be active participation. This is not about the facilitator or the tutor or the speaker imparting the knowledge through a one-way communication. Because many of you who attend these courses, you are not coming from school directly. You are already working adults. I'm very sure the kind of experience that you have is going to be very valuable for the class. And by my own experience in classes like this and similar other classes, we find that active class participation, the learning will be fantastic. You are not going to regret it. All right. So with that, I think this is the last slide, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so these are some of the sessions that we have done. These are my other colleagues who have done the various sessions in class. Next, please. These are, again, class case presentation. So cases will be given. You work as a group, and then you will be asked to do a presentation. And that's where you really articulate your experience, your knowledge that you have gained in class. And this is a real experiential learning. Okay, next, please. All right. Okay. I think.
Information that I've gained today from the training, I will go back, discuss with my management, my MD himself, and see how we can form a project team and put in place all those anti-corruption related matters so that the company will be free from any unnecessary or abnormality in functioning of the organization.
The program was great, a very thought-provoking session that we had for the 3 days program, and looking forward for more sharing and interaction on the best practices that can be applied in our organization.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan, for the introduction to the 3 programs and for sharing the learning outcomes for the 3 certification programs. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying on. More importantly is why choose MIM. As what Dr. Mohan has highlighted, you take away great learning outcomes. There are case studies that you will go through as a team. You will also have articles that are the latest, so you actually get the best out of it. Videos, including active class participation, which I think is primarily even more important. And last but not least, you get the opportunity to have a community of practice. So with that, there's no other independent, non-political and not for-profit organization in the country that offers a combination of sophisticated management development programs, networking opportunities, a platform for the incubation of ideas, an exchange of dialogue, and prolific alumni, members, and leadership portfolio like MIM. Through MIM's strong partnership with the BASEL Institute of Governance since 2018, as you saw in the slide, we have issued over 470 certificates to proud MIM graduates. You also now see a slide on membership. That's the difference with Malaysian Institute of Management. We're not a training provider, but we actually offer a holistic approach to the many offerings, and among them is an opportunity to join in our professional membership. Without further ado, I also want to quickly mention about at the average age of business founders get younger every year, and the rapid rate of innovation proving difficult to catch up for many companies. This lies the opportunity for MIM to utilize our collective wisdom, insights, and leadership to guide present and future leaders in weathering the storms of our times and to emerge victoriously. Connecting ideas and forging collaborations in the speed of light in many parts of the world, where new breakthroughs become relevant and obsolete in a second, the new industries rise and fall in rapid succession. To not get swept away by the turbulence of disruption, one must embrace change. These are the strategic elements driving MIM's transformation, drawing inspiration from our rich legacy in management leadership, moving with the times to provide an elevated experience like never before, cementing our role as an influential platform for up and upcoming nation builders, nurturing professionals today for the world of tomorrow through irresistibly impactful leadership. Before I end, I would actually like to open the session. If there are any questions, this is a Q&A session. So if there are any questions for Dr. Mohan, which any of you would like to raise, you can either come off mute or you can either use the chat box to indicate your questions. Are there any questions from anyone? If you do not have any further questions, feel free to reach us at...
There are some questions.
Oh, okay.
And there's someone raised their hand also.
Hi, Stella. My name is Jane.
Hi, Jane. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. I have a question actually. At the beginning, I noticed that there were 41 cohorts. But I also noticed there were 67 diploma recipients. Why is that so? Is it that the passing rate is so low? Or is it that most people drop off half the way or don't complete the assessments that they don't graduate? Thank you.
Okay. Shall I answer that, Deva, on my end? There is several factors to this, Jane, and basically the number of cohorts is one, but ultimately the sessions are also based on the completion of the assessment. So they'll have to go through all three programs and they'll have to submit a written assessment that is consisting of 2,500 words in order to get a pass mark. So there's a combination. Some may not have completed all three. And some may have had a delay in completing it, also because of the COVID that we actually experienced. That could have been one of the reasons to it, Jane.
Can I answer that as well?
Yes.
Basically, the diploma is a combination of the three certifications. Once an individual participant completes the first certification, then continues the second and third, he or she have to do an assignment of 2,500 words to get the diploma. So there are some just do one certification, then they do not continue the second and third. So that's why the diploma cohort will be lesser.
Okay, noted. So therefore, in order to obtain the diploma, 3 certifications would have to be completed. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's right, Jane.
Yeah, and just thinking of a thesis of 2,500 words, that typically probably 10 to 12 pages before. So to me, the recent assessment doesn't seem to be so long, also timely. But I would think that the completion of each certification, I think that would, make it more difficult for participants.
Yes, but however, the certification, there's no examination. So they complete the 3 days program. With the 21 hours of class participation, they are entitled for the certificate.
Okay. So it's just that so each certificate is just 3 days face to face.
Yes, correct.
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much.
We'll be happy to share copies of the information after this webinar as well.
And the costing too. I think that will really help. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Mr. Loga? That's how you get. Hi, Ms. Loga.
Hi.
So you have to complete the 3 certification to get the diploma.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, but the first certificate, the 21 hours each certification, plus the assignment base, that's when the diploma comes in.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, there's a question about, is there any due date for the registration? Our next certification program will be on corporate governance. It's going to be on the 21st, 22nd February. You can register by the 21st, before 21st of February.
Deva, can I ask you to display the slide on the dates that was displayed earlier? Okay, so those are the dates that you can mark off in your diary for the coming intakes that we have over the first quarter. And should any of you want a copy of the brochure, there is a contact there that's displayed on the slide at pec@mim.org.my. There's also a question here from Noor Pahana. Classes is virtual or face-to-face? It is actually face-to-face here. And just also for everyone's info, if there is a need for classes to be virtual, we can also conduct that for in-house as well. If it's something that you require specifically for your team, we'll be happy to do that as an in-house program. And it can be done and can be delivered face-to-face or virtually as well. No, Fahana, for your info. There is a question here from Azli Shah Muhammad Ali. Is there an exemption for those who already have a professional certification? Dr. Mohan, are you able to answer this?
To my knowledge, no. Because this program is under the BASEL Institute, and the requirement is you have to go through the 3 courses and do the written paper. But if you are already a CEIO, you may want to strengthen further with this BASEL Institute of Corporate Governance certification, because that gives you a lot of credibility and, for your career and so on. So I would still encourage you to continue with this program.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mohan. There is a question here from Smita Nair. How much will each certificate cost? Deva, would you like to answer that?
Okay, the program will cost 4,600 ringgit, not inclusive of 6% SST, which will, if you include it, it will be 4,876. However, being a member, you'll get a rebate of 300 ringgit from the course fees.
And the fee is similar for all
the 3
programs.
levels, and is fully HRDC claimable.
Okay. All right, thanks, Deva. And another question here from Jane. How many cohorts do we run in a year? Deva, would you like to take that answer as well?
Okay, that one we will normally run around 4 cohorts in a year. However, the dates will be informed to you.
I thought that was not what we agreed.
We just hear the background.
Okay.
Deva? Okay. All right. We have the next question here from Maclean bin Ali. Are the certificate and diploma recognized, and by who? Dr. Mohan, do you want to answer
okay,
that?
Ken. Well, the certificate and diploma is actually sanctioned by BASEL Institute of Governance. Okay. So, I mean, whether it's definitely it is a well-known institute where they are very, very famous. Even for that matter, I come from a global anti-corruption transparency international global movement. We also do engage with BASEL Institute in Switzerland on many of the new initiatives that we do. So, so they are globally recognized, and I think when you go with this certificate, when one sees that you have gone through this program, it gives a lot of strength to your CV. So I would say that it's something that not to worry about that. Huh? Okay.
Dr. Mohan, thank you so much for taking that answer. I felt it was important that as the president of Transparency International Malaysia, you answered that, because if I'm going to answer it, it would seem like I'm repeating it, and it would seem almost very hard sell from my end. So thank you very much for that, Dr. Mohan. I appreciate that. Nurul has a question. Where is the venue for the course training? Most trainings are actually held in, is usually held offsite in a hotel, and closer to the date, the team at MIM will keep you informed of the venue. And most times it will be in PJ. Nurul. Okay. I hope we have answered.
Mr. Loga has a.
Mr. Loga, sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. Must all the certificates be done at the same time, the cohort? Or let's say this cohort, I do certificate 1, and then the next I do certificate 2. Is that acceptable?
Mr. Loga, can I answer that?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Loga, you can do any certificate according. There's no that situation where you have to sit for anti-corruption first, then go to governance. For example, now you join governance in February, then you come for your anti-corruption and compliance, let's say on the month of July, is acceptable.
Thank you.
It's according to your convenience. We have students that, participants that did the program 2 years ago, now coming for the last subject, last certification to get the certificate diploma. Hello, Mr. Loga?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
Sir.
We have another question here from Asli Shah Muhammad Ali. Apart from the written assessment, is there any other mode of assessment prior to the award of the diploma?
It's only one method.
Yes. And it's only just one written assessment, of 2,500 words.
Yes.
Mr. Asli, I hope you got that. Thank you. We still have time if there are any last questions that anyone has. Okay, Dr. Mohan and Deva, looks like we are about, we've got another 10 more minutes. Looks like we have actually sort of come to the end of the session. And meantime, if there are any other questions that you may have, please feel free to reach out to us at MIM. Loga, yes, I see you raise your hand.
That's right. I asked a question just now about the timing. I guess it's like a 9 to 5 thing for 3 days?
Yes, it's going to be 9 to 5, full day.
All right. Okay.
That's right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, any other questions before we end the session? And Jane? Yes, Jane, please.
I was thinking, in terms of awarding the certificate, it's just a normal, the diploma. There's no diploma with distinction, right? It's just you award, you pass up a written assignment and it's not graded. Is it graded? Or is it just a pass?
It's not graded. It's a diploma award.
Yeah. Okay. So there's no such thing as you graduate with distinction or anything like that.
No, not really.
Okay. Thank you. I see a smile in doctor's face, but yeah.
Can everyone show your video so that we can take just a photo for memory?
You can come off your video. Now we get to see Deva. Devan, if you got the photo?
Yes.
You
Okay,
have?
one. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile. Thumbs up. 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, before I end the session, I'm actually pleased to also say that we've actually got our Vice Chairman, Encik Aslan, who's actually joined us for the session as well. Thank you so much, Encik Aslan, for signing in. Would you like to say anything, Encik Aslan, since we have you online?
Okay, sure. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Yeah, the last we met was during our program, Building Towards a Corrupt-Free Nation. It was really discussed without fear and favor. A lot of compliments from many of the participants. Thank you so much. And I want to thank the participants of today's review. Okay, please give a thought. Okay, we encourage you to consider these programs as very timely. And there's something that I'd like to highlight here. Dr. Mohammed mentioned about SMEs. Okay, if you meet any SME colleagues of clients, you should encourage them, because SMEs and the startups, the new startups, these are the people who need a lot of information on corporate governance. So I encourage everyone to consider this program, okay, as something very beneficial in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Encik Aslan, for that. And without any further delay, we promised that this was going to end at 3:30. So we're now 3:22. I would like, on behalf of our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Siva Yanam, and the rest of the team who've actually put a lot of efforts in today's program, thank you everyone for taking time to join this session. And I do hope that you've actually taken a great insight from our MIM Learning Insights today. I also like to wish all a happy Chinese New Year to all who are celebrating this festive season, and to the rest, happy holidays. Have a good rest of the day. And finally, thank you so much, Dr. Mohan, for taking time for today's MIM Learning Insights. Thank you everyone, and have a wonderful day.